Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific North, fresh from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sweet, sweet Mariners, baby.
Talking about sweet. How does it feel going down to San Francisco, Santa Clara, any sand in California and go and taking that trap? Seahawks go down to the 49ers and eke out a 3-point victory over the weekend to, in all realistic possibilities, kind of kept the playoff hopes alive. Because if you lose that game being 0-3 in division games,
Would
would have
not be
hurt.
very good.
Right in the thick of it. You go from fourth and finish at second.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. It's real neat. Really weird to see the Cardinals in first. I'll tell you that.
Hopefully not for long. But before we talk about that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you are looking for someone that is able to record tonight because they have survived the bomb cyclone that happened in Western Washington, and yes, that's right, the power's on here, baby, and I'm ready to talk Hawks to you with that power on. If you're looking for someone like that, you're looking for a guy like me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy that didn't even have to worry about bomb cyclones, he had a big mountain range in the way. So he's talking Seahawks from the other side of the state. So if you're ready for that country view today,
Sure, dude.
get ready for Mr. Hee Haw himself, Cain.
If that's the furthest thing from the truth,
Giddy up.
sure, dude. Yeah, I'm Kane. You can find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, TikTok, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us, follow us, follow us. Do it, freaking do it. I also apologize if the energy's not here, guys. I'm sick and I'm gonna do my best today. I've got a good breakdown for you.
Oh man, back's already hurting, but guess what? I'll power through.
Just
Just like the
you just
power is on.
put me in your backpack. You can carry me this episode.
Okay, here we go. All right, we'll start off with breakdown by on scoring per quarter. The first quarter, Seahawks notch 3 points. 49ers come in with seven. Seahawks get another three in the second and hold the Niners scoreless. Seahawks get seven in the third compared to the three by the Niners. And then the Seahawks get seven in fourth as well as the Niners for a score of 22-17. Well, how the heck did that happen?
I do
Sure,
have a
I'll tell
question
you
for you,
about
real
it.
quick.
In the first quarter, Jason Myers kicks a 52-yard field goal. And that was followed up by a 10-yard run by Brock Purdy. And in the second quarter, you have a 57-yard field goal by Jason Myers. Get into the third quarter after an ill-advised pick where the Niners were in scoring position immediately. Will hold them to three for a 33-yard field goal by Jake Moody. Kenneth Walker the third clocks in with a 1-yard tutty. Go the fourth quarter, Juwan Jennings, who ate a little bit in this game. He was not very hungry afterwards because he was gobbling up receptions with a 3-yard TD catch. And then you cap the game off with a last second, 12 ticks on the clock. Geno Smith, 13-yard touchdown run.
You have a question for you. Have we yet to score on an opening drive this year?
A touchdown? I believe so.
That's unfortunate.
You know, there was a wise man. His name was young Peter Carroll, and he would say, "Can you win the game in the first quarter?" And everyone would say no. And then he'd say, "Can you win the game in the second quarter?" And he would say no. And then he said, can you win the game in the third quarter? Answer, still no, but you can win the game in the fourth quarter, which is what the Seahawks did here. But I will say you can win the game in the first quarter and the second and the
Here,
third.
I will present the Detroit Lions for that. They win in every quarter. Like,
All right, good to
that
know.
would be fun. That would be so much fun.
Well, you know what is fun for you? Stats, Statosaurus Rex. So
I
guess
do
what I
love
got?
stats, and you know what? I
Some
don't wear the glasses anymore, so I can't really do the Poindexter thing.
I got
So
some stats. Geno Smith, 25 of 32 for 221 yards, no touchdowns, one interception. And the,
false, one touchdown because well, go ahead with your stats. You're the stat guy.
these are our passing stats.
Fair enough.
So he had no passing touchdowns
Fair
and
enough.
one interception. I thought Geno Smith did pretty well, except for that interception. This one where he's scrambling out to the left. You got JSN coming to the sideline, and Geno just airmails it by a
It,
good 5 yards.
right to was it Lenore?
Oh no, I was gonna say a bad word that would have put an E on this because I was gonna say F Lenore, especially after he was trying to fight K9 and got a little cooked in this one after his
Yeah,
big deal.
yeah. That was
So, but outside of that, Gino, he ends up taking 4 sacks in this game, two by Nick Bosa. And I thought the pocket presence was pretty good. He moved around, he got the ball out quick when he needed to, and
he didn't
had a
look
good
as
feel
bad
for the
this last
game.
game.
Yeah. I mean,
He didn't throw any touchdowns. Yeah, he threw a pick, but all in all, he did what he had to do for most of the game.
well,
He
he did
made
what,
the
and then he did what he needed to do in winning time, which we'll get to in the next round of stats. But this was definitely a game where he looked very composed coming off of the bye week.
yes. I have some. I still have some gripes with our running game.
Sure,
I
let's get
do.
into the running game right now. Your leading ball toter was Kenneth Walker the third, 14 rushes for 54 yards and one touchdown. Geno Smith clocks in with 4 rushes for 29 yards and a touchdown. JSN is your third leading rusher in this game with 1 rush for 8 yards, and clocking in at fourth is Zach Charbonneau with 4 rushes for 3 yards.
Which is absolutely abysmal. Abysmal.
I mean, when
K9 is so good. And I guess you could say Sharp is good. He hasn't really shown me much, right? Outside of the weeks where K9's been gone, he hasn't really showed you much.
you could say that he's good, but you haven't seen it.
I've seen splashes of it.
I don't think
Eh,
that he's going to be a true bell cow type back that you get with K9. When you look at this as a whole, your 4 rushes by Geno Smith, one was a called QB sneak. So when you're really looking at this, and that went for 1 to no yards, depending on how they judge that one. So most of these are scrambles. So when you look at it, they had 32 dropbacks with 4 sacks, so 36 pass attempts. You put another 3 on there, so 39 pass attempts because of the Geno Smith rushing. When you look at Walker, JSN, and K9, you're clocking in at 19 total rush attempts. And it was tough because the 49ers do very well against the run. And when Nick Bosa leads this game, which he's more touted as a pass rusher anyway. So gave Gino a little bit more time
yep.
for them to go after them in the passing game. And especially when you look at that score, the score that was set up in the third quarter at the time, the Seahawks are down by at that point you're at 6 9 or 10, so you're down 4 points, so you're trying to go back and score, and then the 49ers tacking on another touchdown. You're going to the score, you're at the end of the game, so you're looking to pass the ball a little bit more. I do
Of
like that they
course.
ran the ball, more attempts, but I think they nailed it on the head during the broadcast on getting creative on how you do these rushes, being able to go
Mhm.
under center a little bit more, being able to get creative in the run game. You saw that with the JSN sweep where it was blocked very well. Good block
Mhm.
by Cody White in
Yeah.
this game on that run.
There's one thing about, with Gino in that fourth quarter, right? With everything that happened on that last drive, he looked cool, calm, and collected during that. There was no pressure on him at all. He, with the majority of his yardage came during the last two plays of the game, right? He ran for about 8 yards on that right side, had a huge hole open up that got him the first, and then, letting the clock go, which was great. And that big hole opened up on the left side and ran it in for the touchdown. The dude looked, you know, he just looked good doing it.
Yeah.
And
And I expect with the Cardinals, who
yeah,
we'll talk about later in the episode, they've really had some up and down games offensively and defensively, but they've been probably playing the most complete. That's why they have the record they do
yep.
right now. So it'll be interesting to see how the rushing attack is exploited next week, but we'll talk about that later in the episode while we talk about some receiving stats. Jackson Smith in Jigba leads the team in catches and yards, 10 catches for 110. DK Metcalf clocks in at number 2 with 7 catches for 70 yards. Then you got Tyler Lockett, 2 catches for 19 yards. And Barner filling in for Noah Fanagan clocks in with 2 catches for 15 yards.
I mean, Jason, man, kind of quiet that whole first half, but in the second half, him and Gino were just a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
10 receptions on 11 targets. That's
And
awesome.
and the other target was the one that Gino airmailed on him.
Right.
So
So,
I did what I really liked about JSN when they did that tunnel screen where you opened up DK for a one-on-one and then you screen to the triple receiver side and DK Metcalf. I mean, you see that play a lot in college and you don't see it executed very well in the pros because usually you can key it up pretty well. But he was just in there bobbing and weaving. The line did a good job getting out in front. DK Metcalf showed what he means to this team in his first game back, getting some very tough catches, especially late when both he and JSN had very tight catches. Like the JSN one with the knee on the sideline was, I thought that was getting overturned. DK's when they're like, oh, this is going to get overturned. I was like, there's no way. His foot's on the ground when the ball makes contact with the hands and he secured it right away. So they were
yeah.
able to be clutch when they needed him to. And then you had Tyler Lockett that ended up I saw a little bit of a breakdown on Twitter/X where Tyler Lockett was running a not a post, Jesus, corner out and gets his guy beat. And Geno Smith pocket claps on him. And it's one that he takes a sack on. And if Geno had a half a second more, he's got Tyler Lockett wide open in the corner of the end zone. So Tyler Lockett's still doing a little bit of things, but definitely you're seeing the maturation of Jackson Smith and Jigba and
Yeah.
having that complement of DK being that big play receiver. But what you really saw out of this team, especially when you had Nick Bosa still in the lineup, the team can get after the quarterback, right? That's how the Niners have feasted and really been a thorn in the Seahawks side. And you saw a lot of quick passing game. You saw Geno on time. You saw some good rack. But when you look at this as a whole, okay, so you have JSN who averages 11 yards a catch. DK averaged 10 yards a catch. Tyler Lockett averaged 8.5 yards, and then you got 7.5 yards. So the averages are, you didn't have that big boom, boom, boom play, but you killed them with paper cuts in the
Yep.
passing game in this game. You
Yep.
just took what the defense gave you, took what your offensive line gave you, and
Your receivers also didn't try to do too much, as we've said with DK in the past, right? Where he tries to get that extra inch, that extra yard, and bad things normally happen. But they just kind of did, as you said, what they were supposed to. and it ended up putting us in fairly good situations throughout the entire ball game.
Well, I don't think the Seahawks would be in this game when you look at there's a lot of turnover from game one to game two for the Seahawks and the Niners. So in the first game, Niners, no Christian McCaffrey, no Ricky Pearsall, but I believe you had Ayuk in that game, and
Yes.
you had George
You
Kittle.
also you also still had Juwan Jennings because that was
Yeah.
after he went off for the first time. They had most of their weapons, and Jordan Mason was on a tear at that point.
Well, Mason got hurt and Garendo popped off, especially with that. Well, he was lighted
Yeah,
up until that one big run. But especially when you look at the Seahawks in this game, first game, no K9. They had no Ernest Jones.
right. And then I also believe wasn't that
Byron Murphy didn't play in this
we didn't
game.
have Byron, we didn't have Uchenna Nwosu. I believe Derek Hall and Blaine Mafe were banged up
I think
in
one
this
of them didn't
game.
play. You had, I think that Leonard Williams still played in that
I
game.
think he did play, and he was the only one on the line that was injured that played because he had to play in that game. There was no
Yep.
sitting out. He's literally he's got a C on his chest, right? Pretty sure he does. No, but he's a big part of that
Julian
defense.
Love's got the C on the defensive side.
He's got he's a big part of that defense, and that's a game you don't miss
So
if you can play. But
let's
they
talk
did not
about
have a lot of pieces in that game.
some defensive stats. And we just talked about some guys that didn't play in that first matchup. Well, your two leading tacklers did not play in that first matchup, but they did here. First guy is Ernest Jones with 13 tackles. You had Tyrese Knight clocking in with 10 tackles and a quarterback hit. Julian Love, 9 tackles and 1 TFL. You had Spoon clocking in with 8 tackles and 3 passes defended. Draymond Jones and Derek Hall both get accredited with a sack. The Hall one was because Brock Purdy fell down and he was the first one to touch him. You also have Boye Mafe, who I wanted to highlight because he had 2 passes defended on, I believe it was back to back plays, one batted down at the line and one dropping into coverage.
Yeah, he did. That
And
was sick.
big props to the big man, Jonathan Hankins, on his first career interception.
And hey, another Draymond Jones sack. What do you
Yep.
know?
Draymond Jones is on pace for about 7 this year, which would be a career high.
Whoa, that's nuts.
And he's been playing, as we've pointed out in the last handful of weeks, we've been seeing splash plays a little bit more. And you had talked before the episode a little bit about Byron Murphy and his ability to take on a double team in this. You saw the patience at linebacker. I think they highlighted on the broadcast with Ernest Jones not over pursuing and
He was
opening up
everywhere.
cutback lanes for Christian McCaffrey. You know, Christian McCaffrey had a couple of pop plays when
But he
catching the
didn't
football, but he
but he
didn't
didn't have
really have
anything.
anything running the football.
No, he just got chunk yardage. That's all he got. It wasn't like just this crazy like how we see him run for 20 yards. It defense swarmed on
Yeah.
CMC this
Brock
game.
Purdy was definitely the most dangerous one when scrambling throughout this game. I was holding my breath a little bit more, but I felt with this defense as a whole coming off the bye, the defense showed up from the jump, right? So this team is going to go as the defense allows you. Yes, we've seen it where the offense can absolutely shred, but we also, like in this game, saw times where the offense struggled to get going. But I feel like they didn't have the 3 and outs, but you know, the finishing drives and just trying to get those things continued. We didn't see the 3 and outs, but we did see a little bit of stalling here and there. And then they turned it up, they ratcheted it up, made a mistake, went behind even bigger right out of half and just clawed their way back, which is something that the Seahawks haven't done. Geno Smith was 0-5 career against the Niners. We hadn't won in 3 years. So to be able to go down to San Francisco to put them at the bottom of the pile and work our way back up. It was a very fun game to watch when it
Yes.
concluded. I'm sick and tired, and my heart can't stand Seattle sports because I was just on edge for over 3 hours, and I'm tired of having that happen on
Like,
Sundays.
not gonna lie, dude, before the 2 minute mark in the fourth, there was literally no way I thought the Hawks were getting the ball back with uh with that
Two
short look.
passes, two passes, idiots.
Yeah, like I
And
don't
the first one to
understand.
Debo's blanketed, and if that ball's put on him, the pass is getting broken up.
Right. And so it just doesn't make sense how we even got the ball back. You know what I mean? It's nuts.
Yeah,
But big club dub.
Club Dub is right. Let's get into our players of the game. Kane, who do you got for your offensive player of the game?
Oh, dude, give me some more of that JSN action. As I stated earlier, dude, 10 for 11 for 110. That's huge. And they're playing to his strengths now. They're letting him get downfield a little bit more to make these routes and to get extension. He's like Debo Samuels in that way, right? Where he's pretty shifty and going through the play. And once he gets the ball, that rack yardage, right? I mean, his longest on the day was 20. The dude was everywhere. Kind of slow in the first half, but he finished strong. And that's just what we needed. JSN's emergence has been so much fun to watch this year. And to see him do it time and time again to the 49ers. Because he did it last year against them on the thriller on Thanksgiving, right? And I believe he had a good game in the first one outside of Gino being horrendous. There was that DK who had the big game outside of everything.
That was
Doesn't
so
matter.
long ago.
But to see him do it back to back weeks, practically, right? Against division rivals, God, it's been sweet to see. Coach Red, who's your offensive player of the game?
You have to throw an S on that because I have offensive players of the game. And I know that I talked earlier about people that had not played in the first game. So I'm going to go with two people making their first starts of the season. And that is Olu Olawatimi and Abe Lucas.
Olu played well. Olu played well.
So first I want to talk about Abe Lucas. He didn't play the whole game. This is his first game back in a long, long time, trying to build that stamina up. Yes, he did allow a sack, but that's to Nick Bosa, who's a freak, right? But how he held up pretty well. And we were talking before this in the lead up that, yes, when you look at Abe Lucas, the line typically seems to work better together when he's on the field. Then you throw in the surprise retirement of Connor Williams on like Thursday of last week. And
Yes.
you've got Olawatimi, who was a healthy non-dress early in the season that surpasses Sundell, who I think they were keeping him on because of his positional versatility, where he can play center but also play tackle somehow. But Olawatimi graded out as by PFF at over an 80 grade overall, in that since Max Unger was traded, there Justin Britt, I believe, had 2 games over that. And then you had 1 game over that by another center. So since Unger was traded, you've now had 4 games where a center's been rated by PFF with a 80 plus grade, and one of those was in Olawatimi's first start of the season.
I do have a funny Justin Britt thing. Uh, I don't know if you found it yet, but I found it.
You sent it to me, but I watched it with I saw it where it had the subtitles on it.
Um, Justin Britt's TikTok is amazing. Uh, Basically calling out people who don't believe that he could still play because he's like, have him call me. I'll put on 30 pounds. I'll be their center again. And it's so funny, dude. Just a funny dude. That's what he is. It's great. comedic relief to just see all these ex players still be in love with Seattle has been amazing.
I mean, who was it? It was Gino, I think, was talking to Sherm on his podcast, and he's like, looked over at some point in the third quarter and saw KJ on that sideline, and I was just like, oh, as like I got a little bit of extra fire in me built up because it just didn't feel
Yeah.
right seeing him there. You got Richard Sherman, who during these it stays pretty neutral. It's from the Bay Area, went to Stanford, drafted by the Hawks, played for the Niners. You know, he stays pretty neutral. Dude's rock a Seahawks hat and seems to have fallen back in love with Seattle after Russell Wilson left. So great things to see. And,
Mm-hmm.
enough about that, though. Let's go to who your defensive MVP was for this game.
It's Ernest Jones. Oh boy.
I think that he's going to be testing the open market. I think the Seahawks are going to be putting in a very hefty offer, but if they can somehow work out an offer that all sides feel good about before this season wraps up, do it, do it, do it. Shout out
Oh,
Lefty France. Shout out Lefty France on that one.
how the defense looks under him, dude. I mean, don't get me wrong, the tandem. eh, Actually,
You
just the
taking the whole
quadruple.
linebacking room?
So you look at the safety room right now, right? Where they've been playing pretty well.
And
Kobe
Rayshon
Bryant,
Jenkins almost back.
you think he's gonna get much playing time when he's back?
Yep.
Okay, sure.
Well,
Kobe
because
Bryant has earned
dude,
earned
Rayshon lays hat from the secondary. He's your hammer.
sure,
Kobe Bryant
sure,
tries to, but he's just not
sure,
big enough to lay that.
sure. But you've had great play out of your safety room, and this linebacking duo, man, they are going to be something fierce. Oh my gosh, Ernest Jones, 13 tackles on the day. That's unreal to
And 10
me.
by night. That's 23 between the two of them.
That's insane to have just those two guys. They're fast, bro. They just head to ball, ready to roll. Ernest Jones is just, I hope he's our linebacker for the next 5 years.
In Ernest Jones, you see Knight a little bit more where he's still that young guy, a little overzealous, and he just hits it 100 miles an hour, which, yes, at some point that will open up the cutbacks and all that. Ernest Jones plays it like a 10-year vet, man.
And he's 24 years old. That's nuts. I hope they can lock him. I have said he is the number two priority in the offseason because DK needs an extension as well.
He's still under contract, baby. He's number one priority right now.
Fair, fair. Coach Red, who's your defensive player of the game?
Go ahead and give me Devon Witherspoon, baby.
Oh,
Spoon showed up to play.
best
He
game of
went on some blitzes. He had 3 passes defended. He's the one that tipped the ball that ends up going into Jonathan Hankins' arms. He was around the football. He was fourth on the team in tackles in this game with 8. The dude was everywhere. He was all that in a bag of chips in this game. He came ready to play from the opening whistle.
this was the best. I mean, because we can credit last year, Devin Witherspoon's best game was against the New York Football Giants, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That was this game. Division opponent. And he shut Debo down. Shut him down all game. It
And
was fantastic to see.
you had Jawan Jennings, who had a solid game, made a lot of very tightly contested catches where, hey, more power to him because you had a lot of these times where the DBs were in good position. But
Yep.
when you look at your true corners in this game with Reek, Spoon, and Josh Jobe, secondary
Josh
the secondary did its job.
Josh Jobs played pretty well.
Josh Jobe's starter now. Practice squad starter, baby.
I like it. I like it a lot.
And we actually have 2 honorary
Oh, sure.
players of the games.
Sure.
The first one is we don't talk about special teams that much, but we are going to give our specialists of the game to Jason Myers for kicking a grand total of 109 yards worth of field goals in two attempts. It's pretty impressive hitting two over 50.
That is
Give it
impressive.
up.
That is impressive. And he missed one earlier in the year too. So
Give it up for Jason Meyer. And the person that I think might have been one of the most instrumental or thing in winning this game for the Seahawks. Big shout out to Nick Bosa's hip, baby. Because when he came out of the
yeah,
game after that, that's where he saw two touchdowns go on the board after the Seahawks had not gotten on the board the entire game. And I think that when you look at this game as a whole, you got to give some game balls to the coaching staff.
yes,
You have a situation that pops up where your shot caller on the offensive line retires midweek, misses practice, showed up on Monday, misses Tuesday, misses Wednesday, retires on Thursday. Bringing in a Lucas, what's that rotation going to look like? You look at Grubb, where you're seeing the progression of that differential that we saw earlier shrinking between pass and run. Arden Durde and Mike McDonald, what they were able to do with that defense to get them prepped and ready for this game, they played lights out.
yeah. I this to me outside of the blowout kind of just month in stuff at the beginning of the year, right? This
What
was the best
what
played
what
game.
blowout was there?
Didn't we blow
The
out
Dolphins.
the Dolphins? Yeah.
That's it. OT
Uh
OT versus the Patriots, like one score game against the Broncos.
Denver.
There'd been no blowouts except for
I
the
mean,
Dolphins.
so outside of everything, this was their best played game.
Actually, I would might venture to say that they also did blow out the Falcons.
Yeah, they did. They did blow out the Falcons. They were awesome that day. But I think that this was their best team game, right? You saw them play complete ball. And that's something kind of in these types of games. I mean, let's jump back to the Rams, right? Yeah, the field goal got blocked, but it's just so nitty gritty against them every single time. But this was just a complete show. As I said earlier, Gino marched down the field with such confidence in that fourth quarter with under 2 minutes to go.
Mm,
That's nuts.
yeah, your defense balled and your offense did enough to win the game. Now, let's put all those pieces together to get into the battle of the birds coming this weekend. Division birds, you got blue versus red. Here we go, blue team. Big shout out to Cress Bradford on that. You have no clue who that is.
No, I don't.
Fall ball baseball coach. And we had blue jerseys. And he would always say, "Here we go, blue team." And there would be times where we were playing another team whose jerseys were also blue. And he would still say, "Here we go, blue team."
All right.
Yeah, what a stud muffin. Big shout out, Cress Bradford. But you've got an Arizona team that comes in at the top of the division. They come off of the bye week. The 2 weeks prior to that, absolutely dismantled the Jets, absolutely dismantled the Bears. But you've seen some games, granted, it's usually against better competition, but their lost week one to the Bills, where it was a closer game than I think that anyone thought it was. They played the Lions early. Lions outscoring pretty big. They lose to the Packers, and I think that they lost to the Packers while Malik Willis was starting,
Sounds about right.
if I'm not mistaken. And then there was another tighter game sprinkled in there. Oh no, they lost. They got smoked by the Commanders.
Yeah. Here's the thing with the Cardinals, right? Kyler is playing at a better level this year than we've seen in years past post Call of Duty release. The one enigma that you kind of have with this team right now is you don't really understand Marvin Harrison Jr. Um,
I
uh,
wouldn't venture to say that. What I have written down on my key card for the offense is, yeah, Kyler Murray is playing much better since the Call of Duty release. You already brought that up. He's doing well.
Yep.
He's limiting the bad balls. I think he's clocked in with only like 3 interceptions on the year. So
Mhm.
he's taking care of the ball, but he's also dynamic in the run game for you and his scrambling ability. When you couple him and James Conner together, combined, they're over 1,000 yards rushing. When you look at McBride and Harrison Jr., they're combined between the two of them for over 1,000 yard receiving. This is probably one of the more balanced teams that you're going to see in how they
Yes.
can attack you. They can attack you inside with the running game of James Conner. They can get you on the edge with Kyler Murray. You can see McBride run in the middle and being that do all be all tight end for this team. And then Marvin Harrison, that's got that big playability. It's going to be interesting to see, especially when you look at the Seahawks, how in years past they've struggled with good tight end play, right? I think that you could say in this year as a whole, the best tight end game you've seen is Hunter Henry in week 2.
Yes.
And when you look at the perimeter, there hasn't really been that true number one that's burned you this year
Mhm.
either. When you look at all the teams that they face, yeah, there's been some guys that have done some stuff. Like Cooper Kupp had a pretty solid game, but Cooper Kupp was also running a lot out of the slot and getting a lot of rack yards. But
Mhm.
when you look at that true outside go guy, which Marvin Harrison is going to be, that big play guy, it's going to be interesting to see how they stack up with this defense, especially how well they're fitting their run fits after the bye, how
Mhm.
well they've been defending wide receivers, especially when you put this Josh Jobe into this. And it'll be interesting to see. Rayshawn Jenkins is going to be chomping at the bit. I don't think that he's going to get all the play time. I think they will split it up with he and Kobe Bryant and get it a little bit more 50-50 split potentially. Probably Kobe in a little bit more, the other team really needs
Coverage.
to pass the ball if you're up big, where he can be that
Coverage.
true center fielder. But I like I like Julian Love playing center field and Rayshawn bringing the hammer, especially when you look at McBride. Having Rayshawn bring that hammer on McBride, I think, is a key aspect to this
It's
game.
fair. And as you said, Kyler hasn't thrown many bad balls. They've been Deacon Duncan a lot of stuff. He's very smart with it this year. And their defense is nothing to scoff at either. I mean, you have one of the best safeties in the league out there, Buda Baker.
He's got over 100 tackles right now. He's their leading tackler.
You and I both love Buda Baker. He is an enigma in himself. And the last time I one of the best memories is when he picked Russ off and DK chased him down. But I hope we don't ever have to see that again.
No, and what I've said is you have a defensive minded head coach. They're coming into this game. They are
Yep.
10 games in. They have 24 sacks, so they're averaging 2.4 sacks a game. Not a bad number. And they have 5 interceptions on the year, so half an interception a game. It's going to be really imperative that they have a complete game on offense. And that's kind of where I'm looking to see, because I haven't paid a ton of attention to the defense of the Cardinals. It's going to be really interesting to see how they can attack teams via the run and the pass, how well they're going to hold up in pass pro, and how many lanes they can open up. You're hoping that with another week of getting back into it, the Abe Lucas is on the field a little bit more than we saw this weekend, but you don't want to overdo it. Olawatimi is a guy that kind of surprised everybody, I think, a little bit. And when you look at your two guards, I like them a little bit more in their run fits than I like them in pass pro. So hopefully you can open up those lanes, get the run game going early, because when you look at this team, when they've had their best success, it's when the run games got going.
Yes,
Against the
that's true.
Dolphins, against the Falcons, you had big chunk plays. Against the Broncos, you had big
Yes.
chunk plays. Kenneth Walker gets dinged up. You don't have those big chunk plays. You don't have that consistent run game against the Patriots. And it puts you in a little bit of a hole. Get creative. Have LaVisca Chenault. Have Derek Young. Have JSN running some jet sweeps. Get creative. It just doesn't have to be running backs. And then get a little freaky with it. Get a little funky,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
Little reversey. Get a little trickeration. I want that little bit of Pete to come back.
Right. Right.
Well, when you write, you write. That's why I carried this episode for you as best I could. And
Sure.
if you think that I did a good job and I had some proper lifting technique, on this episode, why don't you let me know about it over on social media? You can find me, your boy Coach Red, on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or dose. Kane, where you at?
Find me over on Twitter, Kane2406, TikTok, Kane0634. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follows. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.